is 1.5 kilos of potatoes. This is 1.5 kilos of lettuce leaves. They look very different. One's much bigger than the other, even though they weigh exactly the same. This rake is 1.5 metres long. So is this pool noodle and this safety pole. They're all 1.5 metres long. It's the same whichever way you look at it, whether it's 1500 millimetres, 150 centimetres or 4 foot 11 inches, it does not vary. But when it comes to social distancing, it seems that everyone has a different view. Social distancing is vital to help control the spread of COVID-19. Whenever possible, people should remain 1.5 metres away from others, except if they're in the same family group. You need to stay 1.5 metres apart in aisles, queues, checkouts, everywhere. Some people are still complacent, even defiant about the risks. We should not be. The COVID-19 virus can kill and maim, both young and old. It's not just a bad flu. There are some innovative ways to stay 1.5 metres apart, using pool noodles, wide sombreros, sumo outfits, and even electric fences. 1.5 metres is one adult kangaroo apart, but for most people it's simply standing apart at arm's length. 1.5 metres is, for most adults, 2 arms length, or the distance from your left hand to your right hand with your arms outstretched. So, to stay 1.5 metres apart, 2 people both need to outstretch their arms. It seems simple, doesn't it? But simple is hard. It does not have to be exact, but it is important to control the spread of COVID-19. However, when measuring 1.5 metres between tables in a restaurant, it is not simply 1.5 metres between the tables. When seated side by side, 1.5 metres between the tables is fine. But when seated back to back, it is 1.5 metres between the people seated at the tables, not between the tables themselves. So 1.5 metres between the backs of the chairs at the table, which is probably closer to about 3 metres between the actual tabletops. The guidelines vary from state to state, so please check your local regulations with your local health authorities. At the time of filming, restaurants can have 1 guest for every 4 square metres or 2 square metres depending on where you are, but you still must place guests 1.5 metres apart unless they are part of the same group or family. Physical distancing is necessary because the most likely way of catching the virus is by breathing in micro droplets from another person sneezing, coughing or exhaling. By ensuring there is 4 square metres of space per person and maintaining a physical distance of at least 1.5 metres from others where possible, you will reduce the likelihood of exposure to micro droplets of others. 4 square metres is very simple. It is a square, 2 metres long by 2 metres wide. And similarly, 2 square metres is a bit smaller, just under 1.5 metres by 1.5 metres. The basic principles are the same. Measure the length of the space in metres, measure the width of the space in metres. Multiply the width by the length to get the total square metres. For example, if the room is 19 metres long and 10 metres wide, it contains 190 square metres. Divide the area of the room, calculated in square metres, by 4 to calculate the maximum number of people allowed under the 4 square metre rule, or by 2 to calculate the maximum number of people allowed under the 2 square metre rule. In this example, divide 190 by 4, the 4 square metre rule, and the maximum number of guests that can be seated at any one time is 47, or 95 under the 2 square metre rule. Note that in Queensland, small venues, that is one with less than 200 square metres, can, when measuring up the premises, include the whole area, including the kitchen, in the calculations and can divide by 2. However, you cannot have more than 50 guests at any one time. In practice, this is likely to be less. For larger premises over 200 square metres and everywhere else, include only the publicly accessible areas. Please check with your local state health authorities for local restrictions and maximum capacities. Now these numbers under the square metre rules are the maximum number of people, not the set number of people. In practice, most venues will seat a lot less, as they still have to allow the 1.5 metres between guests, unless they are part of the same group or family. Tables and chairs need to be set out to ensure there is sufficient space for both staff and guests to maintain a 1.5 metre distance. So in this example, even though it is permitted to seat up to 95 guests under the 2 square metre rule, the seating capacity is about 34 at any one time. Even using the full space, the number of guests is approximately 44. Self-distancing is vital, and as a restaurateur, you are responsible for ensuring your guests stay 1.5 metres apart. Venue operators can be fined or even shut down for not enforcing the regulations. Venue operators are also required to record the name, telephone number and email address for every guest who dines in, as well as staff and contractors. This information needs to be kept for between 28 and 56 days, depending on where you are. Contact details are generally not required for takeaway. Right now, avoiding close contact with others is important, and whilst keeping 1.5 metres away from each other is not an exact science, it's all about keeping some sensible and practical distance between you and others. Remember also to wash or sanitise your hands regularly. Wear a mask if you're in close contact with people, such as on public transport, or as required in some states, such as Victoria. And if you have flu-like symptoms, stay at home and seek medical advice. Together, we can all stay safe and dine another day. The information presented in this video is based on press releases from New South Wales Health and Queensland Health. It was correct as of Thursday the 23rd of July. Please contact your local health authorities for local restrictions and advice. Thank you to Cafe Divina, Astor Terrace, Spring Hill, Brisbane. Thank you also to Georgina Ryland, Anne-Marie Farr and Jen Witheriff. Still photographs were taken from public sites and used for fair use educational purposes only.